Now, when we talk about linear equations, there are some special types of lines, okay? And I say that they are special because their slope is something that's a little bit different. Their slope is special. So these special lines are going to be vertical lines and horizontal lines, okay? Now, what makes them special is because if you think about a slope, remember we talked about slope being that rise over run. So what's going to make these special is that one of them, either the rise or the run, is going to have a value of 0. So either we're never rising and only running, or we're never running and always rising. So that's going to make these lines a little bit different, a little bit special. Okay, so in a vertical line means that I will always rise and we will never run. Okay, so what that means is that if I have this rise over run, I'm going to have some number of rise, right? I could rise 5 units, I could rise 6 units, I could rise however many units I want. I could rise -2, right? But in the denominator, we're always going to have a 0 because we will never run. There will be no values. So if I take a number and try to divide by 0, I can't do that. We get an error. We call that undefined. The easiest way that I remember that is when the 0 is under, it's undefined. So when my 0 is under the fraction, it is undefined. Okay, so that's the easiest way that I can remember it. So what that means is they're going to give us one number and I will just draw a vertical line that goes through that point. Okay, so the second type of line that we have that's special is a horizontal line. In this case, we're going to always run and never rise. Okay, so we're always going to run and we're never going to rise. So what that's going to look like is I would have no rise, so I have a 0 for that, but I will have a run in the denominator, so some number down there. So if I go try and take 0 and divide by 9, 0 divide by -2, I can divide 0 by a number, but in the end, I just get 0. Okay, so the slope of a horizontal line is going to be 0. This time they'll give me a number and I'm going to draw a horizontal line at that point. Okay, so the thing that I have to remember is what point do I go to? Do I go to an X or do I go to a Y? So for a vertical line, I'm going to go to an X value. For horizontal, I'm going to go to a Y value. So let's look at these first two examples and then we'll do one of our own. Okay, so in this first example here, I see a vertical line. I cannot come up with a slope because it's going to be undefined. I'm always going to be rising, no running, so my slope is going to be undefined. There's not going to be a number for it. So my equation is going to be, I'm crossing the x-axis at 3. So all I need to do is say what axis am I crossing and at what number. Okay, looking at this next example here, I notice this time it's a horizontal line. So I only have a run, but I have no rise. That's going to give my slope to be a 0. Now I look, I'm actually crossing the y-axis at 2, so it's going to be a -2. So y is going to equal that -2. Okay. So let's say instead of them giving me a line, they give me an equation. So let's look at an example over here. Let's say they give me the equation y equals 4. So if y equals 4, remember, if we were graphing a line, y equals mx plus b, we'd identify the m, we'd identify the b, and then we go. But this only has one number. So what it's trying to tell me, when there's only one number, it's trying to tell me, go to the axis. We're going to go to the y-axis because they gave me the y letter. So I'm going to go to the y-axis at 4. Okay, so I'm going to go to the y-axis at 4 and I'm going to put a dot. And I'm going to draw a horizontal line. So I have a horizontal line there at 4. Now, the way that I remember this is once I go to that axis, I can only cross the axis one time. If I were to have drawn a vertical line, I would be right on top of the y-axis, so I'd be always touching it. But I can only cross at that one point. Okay. Now, we'll just use the same graph here. Let's say that they gave me another example. Let's say they gave me x equals -2. So looking at this, remember what we said, if there's just a number, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to go to the axis. This time I'm going to go to the x-axis because they gave me an x letter. And I'm going to go to the axis at -2. So I'm going to go to x-axis at -2. And this time I'm going to draw a vertical line. Right, because I can only cross that x-axis once. So these are going to be our special lines, vertical and horizontal. They're special because they only have either a rise or a run. So my slope is a little bit unique compared to the other types of lines that we were looking at.